Hello, good morning, and thanks to the 69 participants on the call that have joined us. And I'm hearing we have people joining us from different parts of the country, Abuja, Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt. Welcome to the session on communication and marketing strategies for NGOs. Can I quickly check that I have everyone on the call now? Yes, I do. All right, so we will hit the ground running, and in hitting the ground running, let me thank Sterling One Foundation for joining the Nigerian Network of NGOs in doing this. NGOs across the world, communications is part of the work that we do. And that's why this training is very much important for the good work that we do across communities as non-profits in Nigeria. I can see people also joining us from Yobe, from the United States. This is going to be an exciting time, and we'll be spending that time with an expert who understands the topic and also understands the terrain very well. Her name is Onyebuchi Ajufo, and I hope she doesn't mind me calling her directly this way. She will be taking us through how best we can communicate and how we can market ourselves as non-profit. Over the years, we've done very great work. And in doing those work, we've also sometimes not communicated it effectively to our stakeholders and also our audiences. So we will be having an expert talk to us today, and I enjoin all of us to please take copious notes, and if you need to call your colleagues that are also working in the communications team within your organizations to join this call, please let them join so that we can take the maximum benefit from the expert that we have in the room at this time. Mine will be short. It will just be a welcome statement and introductions, and I would like to give this more time to our panelists who would share from our wealth of experience this morning. She's again by name Onyebuchi Ajufo, and she's a partner at Hudson Sandler, where she's in charge of its West Africa business. She's an advocacy and communications specialist, and she has helped public and private sector players navigate complex stakeholder ecosystems. She's good at supporting and building coalitions to deliver socioeconomic impact. And she has over 15 years experience working across Africa, the Middle East, and the United Kingdom with the likes of Africa Practice, Royal Dutch Shell, Visa, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and more. She's also on the board of Haima Health, and an organization building a network of voluntary blood donors for safe, affordable, and quick access to blood in Nigeria. So as you can see, she has a very rich profile, which we all would benefit from today. At this time, I have 108 participants, very excellent participation at this time. And I would like to hit the ground running by handing over to Onyebuchi Ajufo. Again, my apologies if I do not put any title. It's just for ease of moderation and presentation this morning. Over to you, Onyebuchi, please.
Thank you very much, Shay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the 108 and counting people that are joining. Just to add to what Shay said, so a lot of my experience is very much private sector, and I think you've done such a great job in introducing me that I won't do much more than that. But a lot of the experience that I have beyond that is really focused on foundations and bilaterals like the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, MasterCard Foundation, working in partnership with the World Bank, UNICEF, as well as working with some of the program partners that are funded by some of these institutions. So I do have some experience working with NGOs and really understanding the challenges. Now, my challenge today was to make this high level enough so that it was relevant for all types of NGOs, but not too high level that you didn't find it valuable. So hopefully I've done a good job there. If I have pages go ahead, I'm very happy to start. So you also have the CEO of Sterling Foundation on the call. Paige, would you like to perhaps say a word before I jump in? I know we have a lot to cover and very little time in which to do it.
Thank you very much, Onyebuchi and Mr. Onyebuchi, such a wonderful introduction. By all means, we're looking forward to a fantastic session.
Okay, just very quickly, Godfrey, you know the best laid plans. So I'm trying to share my screen. It says that the host has disabled attendee sharing. So if you can maybe quickly give me access and then I'll share. It's ready to go. If everyone else can just bear with us very quickly. I'm seeing that our attendee list is counting, so we're now
Hi, Onyebuchi, you can share your screen now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So good morning again. Welcome. Thank you guys for giving me your time. Like I say, I hope you find it useful. I won't go too much into detail on who I am. I think that a good job has been done there. I will tell you a little bit about Hudson Sandler. So Hudson Sandler are a strategic communications firm and PR firm headquartered in London. We have offices across Europe and now in Africa, in Lagos and Nairobi, Asia as well, and we're in the process of opening up an office in New York. At our very core, we tell people stories. I think at my very core, I'm a storyteller. I've been writing since I was a child, and inevitably, I was always going to find a career that was going to be about telling stories. And I spent the last sort of decade and a half plus telling Africa's stories of success, both on the private sector side and on the public sector side. And so hopefully I can help you today think about your own story and the people that you need to tell it to. If you're on mute, please do mute. I'm getting some feedback. So I've told you why I'm here. Now I want to tell you why you're here. And I think for me, your answer is very simple. You're here because you want to change the world. And that sounds like quite an ambitious objective for anyone. But we all do want to change the world, or at least our little subset of the world, whether it's a state, whether it's a community, whether it's a continent, whether it's a country, or whether it's even a thematic area, whether in education or health. We're all looking to make the world a better place. Most of the NGOs that I've worked with will work in one of these four buckets, or more than one. So you're either working within the research space, where you're delivering research, you're out there collecting data and sharing it, sharing opinions, you're convening stakeholders, you're building capacity and training stakeholders, training beneficiaries, you're out there in the community, you're doing monitoring and evaluation. Now this can be a variety of things. You might be tracking indicators, you can be tracking maternal mortality indicators, HIV indicators, polio indicators, access to education indicators, any sorts of indicators. I think fundraising and fund giving are generally things that all NGOs will do. You need resources to do your work. So I imagine that everyone on this call in some way is fundraising. Advocacy is another area where people are looking, raising awareness about issues to key stakeholders. Government engagement is another area where I have considerable experience, really looking to advocate for policy changes that are required to deliver the social impact that we want. Community engagement, going out there, engaging communities, also understanding the intersectionality of issues in the community. So whether it's religious and cultural differences, gender differences, and infrastructure development. So these are the things like building schools and wells and boreholes, internet infrastructure, financial services infrastructure. So these are generally the buckets that most of the NGOs that I work with have been in, and I assume that the people on the call will also be working in those spaces. Again, there's a little bit of feedback on it, so can you please check if you're on this call, if you're not muted, please do mute so we're not having feedback. Thank you. So now that I've told you why you're here, I want to now tell you how communications can help you achieve your goals. And to give you a visual, I see communications as a bridge. You are on one side, the objective and the vision that you have is on the other side. So if your vision is a Nigeria where every single child has access to education, and this is just an example, that vision of every single child having access to education is very much on the other side of that bridge. Communication is the bridge. It's what helps you to achieve your objective. It's what helps you to distill your purpose into a clear plan. But in order to do that, you really need to understand who your stakeholders are. You need to understand what the messages are, how to build that into stories that resonate, and how to drive impact. And I'll take each of these buckets individually. So the first one is transforming your purpose into plan. I had an ex-colleague who would always ask our clients, what is your reason for being? And I think it's such a good question because a lot of the time we're trying to solve something and we don't yet fully understand that thing. We're not yet quite clear in our minds our actual goal. And I know that sounds strange to tell people who are already working that you don't know what you're working for. But sometimes you really do need to take a step back and ask yourselves key questions to really help frame your goal in your mind and to actually start to build out a plan. And if you ask yourself these questions here, and this is by no means exhaustive, but certainly I think will be a good starting point, you're starting to build a plan quite naturally. And so we'll go through this now and you can see what I mean. So the first one is, what is the issue that you're trying to solve? So that's a very obvious one. I'm trying to solve the problem of access to education. I'm trying to solve the problem of the high rate of maternal mortality in Nigeria. I'm trying to solve the problem of gender inequality in the workplace. Everybody here has a goal. What is the scale of that problem? How big is it? How many people are actually affected by it? And how complex is it? And I think the complexity of your problem is really about thinking about that problem from a three-dimensional way, because you'll start to see all the different people that you require, all the people you need to engage just by thinking about this one question. So it's one thing to have an understanding of the problem, but what is your goal? So saying you're going to solve access to education in itself is not really a goal because it's not time bound and it's not measurable. You really need to be framing it to understand, okay, so what aspect of that specific issue am I going to focus on? And once you understand that, you now start to understand the impact of your intervention. So for whatever reason, or whatever intervention you have decided to apply will have a positive impact. And if it doesn't, then you have to go back to the drawing board. But we assume that it will positively impact people's lives. You need to understand what that impact is because that's part of your story. So if you go out and you meet a donor or you meet the government stakeholder or even a beneficiary, you need to be able to articulate that impact quite clearly. Who are the people that benefit from that intervention? Now you will have direct beneficiaries. So if it's access to education, quite easily you can now start to distill that the children are the direct beneficiaries. But then if you break that down further, you start to see that, well, the parents also benefit because they now have children with better prospects, who are better educated, who can support them in a variety of ways. But then that community starts to benefit because the community now has better educated children, can probably pull in more income into the community. Now the government also benefits because a community that's doing better means that they're able to contribute more to the economy. And so you start to see that you have a lot of direct beneficiaries and a lot of indirect beneficiaries. Who else is trying to solve this issue? This is my favorite question to ask because a lot of people are doing the same thing. And one of the things I think 20 years ago we were very good at was competition. Even within the NGO space, everyone wanted to own a space, everyone wanted to safeguard their turf, as it were. But we're very much moving beyond competition into a space of collaboration, recognizing that we can go further together than we can alone. And you'll find that if you can start to see who else is working on the same issue, you'll start to see areas of synergy, areas where you can share resources, you can share research, you can share access to relationships, you can share data. And there's just better economies of scale. It's more efficient, but also your voices are louder. So imagine one person singing a song versus a chorus singing a song. You just have more influence if you can work with other people. And that's not to say absorb them into your NGO. It's just you can build a coalition. And so coalition building is really one of the things that I always recommend to NGOs. Don't stand alone. You're not going to go very far. What resources do you need to deliver the interventions required? And where will they come from? Now, I think this is one where most NGOs are good at, because funds are the basic necessity to be successful. You need money to be able to drive your activities. But a lot of people also don't necessarily think the most creatively about where those funds come from. And so when you're asking yourself these questions, and hopefully you're asking yourself this question in a group, you're able to start to think, well, where would it normally come from? Is it private sector? Is it from donors? What type of donors are they? International donors, foundations, multilaterals? Is it the government that we're looking for funding from? Sometimes the answer is not as obvious. Sometimes it's other NGOs. So I know NGOs who fundraise and then fund other NGOs. So there's a variety of sources where money can come from that people don't necessarily know about because they're not stopping to actually think, who should we be targeting? How will you engage all these different groups and where will you engage them? This is another very important one. So NGOs do not have infinite resources. If anything, that's one of the areas where, there's always a strain. So you want to make sure that you're really getting return on investment when it comes to what you're spending. And spending is not necessarily just about money, it's time as well. So if you're investing in communications assets or activities, you want to make sure that it's targeted. So if I'm targeting a 15-year-old, I would not put an advert in a paper or an article in a newspaper because I know they're not going to see it. I know where they are, and it's probably on social media. And it might be specific platforms on social media. So really thinking about your audience will help you to refine how you actually communicate with that audience. What will you say to them? Now, this is another important one, and we'll talk a little bit more about key messages, so I won't go into too much detail here. And how will you track your progress? Now, tracking progress is important for a variety of reasons. A lot of you will know that if you have donors, they need reporting. So reports are something that most NGOs are pretty good at. It's very time consuming, but you're good at it. But another thing about tracking progress, especially when it comes to communication, is that you can start to see what's working and what's not. It allows you to course correct. So as we talked about that bridge, where you're on one side of the bridge and on the other side of the bridge is your goal, it allows you to see, well, am I going in the right direction? Do I need to course correct? Do I need to change my tactic, the activities I'm using, and my strategy? And that's why tracking progress is very important. I think I've talked a little bit about stakeholders, and if you're within the NGO space, your stakeholders would generally be one of these.
Record progress.
Bonaventure, can I ask that you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So your stakeholders will be one of these buckets, and really understanding who your stakeholders is very fundamental to actually speaking to them. Because if you don't know who you're speaking to, then you can't really speak to them. So you'll have beneficiaries. We talked about that. I won't go into detail. We talked about the national government and what you may require from them. You might need a policy change because the area that you're focused on is around sexual assault, and you want to ensure that there are policies, but that there's also compliance with those policies. It might be a regional commission because actually you recognize that we need outside influence to influence our own government or put pressure on our own government to pass specific laws or to focus on specific things or to allocate budget for things like access to education. We talked about partners and coalitions. I won't go into too much detail there also, but it's really looking at organizations with similar goals and interests and how you can collaborate to achieve what is a shared goal or vision. Donors we spoke about. Internal stakeholders, I think, is a very obvious one. The media is also an interesting one because I think one of the things people just think PR is media, but the media is a very small subset of what what PR is, what communications is. And actually, you can have an entire communications plan that doesn't utilize the media. It's not to say the media are not important. I think the media are a key component, but they're not the only component. So I would always advise people to avoid, blue ribbon cutting in the newspaper. Who is it targeted at and what is it seeking to achieve? Sometimes it's really just taking a step back to think about what you want to achieve. So if you're trying to perhaps target community stakeholders, then maybe you should be looking at state level media that have the reach in the region that you're interested in, as opposed to a national paper. The one stakeholder that I will speak about here, because I haven't talked about him or her yet, are detractors. I think no matter what view you hold, you will find someone with an alternate view. We are in the era of what I call just disagreements. You go on Twitter, everyone has an alternate view. But this is not sort of an ignore the haters kind of mantra. Alternate views are equally valid. Understanding those alternate views always enables you to build more robust positioning. So I'll give you an example. If you are an NGO focused on reducing the rate of HIV or sexually transmitted diseases, an alternate viewpoint can be the viewpoint held by the church or the viewpoint held by other religious institutions that preach abstinence. Now, abstinence is an alternate viewpoint that distracts from your own message, but understanding their perspectives just allows you to have more robust messaging. So if for any reason you're in an event and that event has, key pastors in attendance, you can actually say you understand the abstinence argument, but the data is clear. STDs are on the rise, people are not abstaining, and so you're able to actually target messaging specifically because you understand those alternate views. So we talked about stakeholders. Now we want to talk about where these stakeholders live in terms of the channels. So we know who you want to communicate with. Now it's really about the channels to use. And I think this is, again, something that is so important because you really just don't want to do what I call a machine gun approach, right? You don't have enough bullets in your arsenal to just throw content out there. You really want to be thinking, who are the most important stakeholders to help me achieve my objectives? What channels do they interact with the most? And what kind of content will resonate with those stakeholders? And so you have channels like TV, and on TV, you can have any kind of content from documentaries to videos to interviews. You have podcasts, which is quite popular nowadays, where you can have interviews, you can speak to different people. Newspapers will always be relevant. And a lot of our newspapers now have online platforms as well, which helps to target a different demographic. So you want to also be exploring that. Events are also key. Sometimes there's no engagement like in-person engagement. And if you have experience in engaging government stakeholders, you'll find that it's really going to be difficult to be sure that they're interacting with your content in any other channel than an event or physical channel. Radio is a great channel to use when you're doing community engagement and community awareness building, especially in areas where that is the most popular channel. And we have quite a lot of those in our rural and our rural urban areas as well. Websites is very key. I think as an NGO at a base level, you should have a website. And there are a lot of free to access or very cheap to access tools to build websites these days that can be done in template formats. So you don't even really need to understand web development to be able to have a website today. But if you come to me and you're telling me about your work or you're looking for funding, the first thing I want to do is Google who you are. I want to be able to see who you are, what you're doing, who's working with this organization, and any impact you already have. So a website really helps to do that. Social media, again, is very prolific: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and some of the other ones that are used by younger stakeholders like TikTok and Snapchat, also very critical. Convenience here, I've sort of pulled that away from events because I wanted to make a clear distinction. So sometimes it's not a big event, it's not a press conference, it's not a conference in itself. It's just actually pulling together a few stakeholders that are decision makers. And so that in itself actually can be quite useful to share best practice, to get decisions made, and to just kind of further your agenda. So once you really determine where your stakeholders are living, you now want to be thinking about the content. So what type of content will resonate with these people? we're still very much, and I find that a lot of the content that I read from NGOs is still very much what I call dry content. So it's a lot of words, it's a lot of data, wanting to share as much as is possible. But the human mind does not have the capacity to retain that kind of information, especially today when we're inundated with content. So don't forget, 20 years ago, you couldn't go on Twitter or any social media channel and absorb news. We're absorbing information constantly. So our capacity to retain information is considerably more reduced today than it was even then. And so your job is to sell something, because you already are selling. You're selling your issue, you're selling your intervention, and you're selling your NGO. But you want whoever is reading it or absorbing it to retain the most important information. And so that's for you to decide what is the most important information and how can I display it in a way that will resonate, but also that people will remember. And beyond just sort of channels and content, sometimes you can actually create a campaign. So you can say, well, actually, we're not just going to push some content out. We're going to have a targeted campaign over a period of time. And we're going to utilize more than one of these channels because we're going to be talking to more than one group of stakeholders. And that can be quite impactful. I would usually advise that it's not something that an NGO does on their own, especially when they're not a big NGO, and that they're looking for partners, whether they're media partners, whether they're other NGOs doing similar work, whether they're government partners or private sector partners, whether there's more than one voice in that room, in that campaign. So I think this perhaps might be just beating that horse and ever so slightly more, but just honing on the need for you to make sure that your content is tailored to your channel and that your channel is tailored to your audience. So one of the things that people say in my sort of little corner of the world is that if you want our current president to see your news, you have to put it in Daily Trust. So a lot of the companies that I work for, if they think, okay, we want at least to have FaceTime, it goes in Daily Trust. But if you know that, then you start to realize that CNBC, which is quite a nice platform, is TV, but it's not going to help you achieve your objective of having the president or having the president's office even acknowledge or see what you're doing. So just tailoring your content to your objective, tailoring your content to your stakeholder really helps you to utilize the limited resources you have at your disposal. I am going quite fast. I do want to be able to give a little time at the end for questions, but we're almost there. So now we've gone through your objectives. You know how to distill your objectives into communications goals. We've talked about your stakeholders, the most important people for you to engage. We've talked about the channels through which you should be engaging those stakeholders and the types of content that will resonate. Now we want to talk about key messaging. Key messaging is very important for any kind of NGO, but it's important for anyone, even individuals. Every individual has a key message. Every organization has key messaging. Every NGO needs to have key messaging. And key messaging are those sets of messages or message that capture who you are at the very core. They capture what you're trying to achieve, the scale of your problem, and your key message will always be consistent. Now, I will contradict myself in a few minutes, but you will understand why. So your key message will never change no matter who you are speaking to. It is still the same thing. Access to education is a non-negotiable right. That might be your key message. If children don't get access to education, we cannot progress our country. That can be a key message. And you need to have a CTA. So yes, you have your key messages. You've captured your main issue. You want to be able to capture the urgency and the scale and what you're trying to achieve within that message. But you also want to be able to tell your audience what they need to do. So there needs to be a CTA. My most recent immediate past boss would always tell me, please don't just come to me with a problem. Tell me what you want me to do about it. So you need a call to action. Join us in this way, or, you know, pass a policy. You need something that really just makes it actionable, and it's not a passive message. Your message needs to be easy to understand. It shouldn't have any acronyms. It shouldn't have any technical jargon. If your 7-year-old child, nephew, niece, or cousin cannot understand your message, then it's too complicated. The next thing is you really want to be thinking about the messenger. So no matter who is talking about your key messages, it should be the same. but you will have a messenger, and you want to consider that medium when you're developing your message. And here's where I contradict myself, because I did say that your key message doesn't change, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. But you can tailor it to your audience groups. So if you're talking about access to education, that's a core message. It doesn't change. But if you go and visit Malala, who is now I think she's a UN advocate for child education for girls, or education for girls, you might want to then pull out some proof points that speak to the state of affairs for girls specifically. Your message hasn't changed, but you've been able to adapt it. So you're focused on her own area of interest. I call that the what's in it for me. You go to a stakeholder, you really want to target them where they are. But that's an entirely different session. That's probably an hour session about persona mapping and really understanding your stakeholders on a deeper level. Okay, so we talk about your message. You know who you are by this point. You know who you're trying to target. You know what you're trying to achieve. You're really ready to go. You want to get out there and start pushing out content. And this is where I think if you don't remember anything else today, it's really about telling stories that matter. I said before that the human brain does not have the capacity to remember all the things that you would love them to remember. You would like me to remember the percentage of children that are out of school. You may even have some facts about the correlation between out of school kids and poverty. You may have some facts about, the areas where it's the worst and some of the reasons, but I may not remember all of that. So you have to be able to not only tell stories that matter, because all your stories are valid, I'm sure, but they need to resonate. So this section will really focus on examples of some of the ways in which I've helped organizations to tell some stories. Content is king. I believe that fundamentally. All the things that you're doing are great, but it is the person that tells the best story that wins. And that might sound cynical or sound like style over substance, but it really isn't. The substance is there. I think everyone working within a space that's passionate about an issue has substance. But how you tell your story inevitably is what sets you aside. So this example was one that I worked on with the education program and Learn Nigeria. It was an advertorial in the Financial Times. I can't remember exactly when now, it was a few months ago, and they had an education report in the Financial Times, and they got offered this space from a partner. So this is again about coalition. So a partner organization had a space in this, in the Financial Times, and offered them the space for free. And so we worked on something, and we really wanted people to be able to look at it and take something away from it. And the image we used there, I find that to be quite strong imagery. It's a girl that you can see that is resolute. And so if I read this out to you, just so that you can get a sense of how we played with different types of things, from copy to graphics and to imagery. So the title in itself, Invisible, you can see how we've played with that, where the invisible title in itself is kind of faded, so it feels invisible, but it jumps out at you. So if you imagine flipping through a Financial Times paper or any kind of paper and you see the word invisible, you might be intrigued and want to read a little bit more. So nobody chooses to feel invisible. Even worse, where the person cannot do anything about it. Fatima, a young student who carried northern Nigeria, feels invisible. Every day she goes to school afraid. She lives in a region prone to insecurity and kidnapping. The risks are great, but the rewards are not. Fatima is in grade 9, but can only read at the level of a grade 2 learner. Her story is not unique. She's one of millions of children in Nigeria who will grow up without learning if we do not intervene. And so we go on to show you the intervention that CEP undertook, and we use graphics. You can see, 2,000 volunteers, 50,000 children, and the number of households, and what that intervention then achieved. And right at the bottom is that call to action. Join us to make more children and their learning a visible priority. So I think this is quite a strong piece of, as an example, utilizing a variety of different types of content, imagery, infographic, and copy. But the real reason why this is strong is the humanity of it. We're telling you the story of Fatima. Now, I bet you that if I flip to the next page, you won't be able to tell me the number of households. I won't flip. But if I had, a lot of you have now gone back to check, 21,600. We don't retain information in that way. But you took something away from this story, and that is about Fatima. And so good indicator, good sheet is to start with a human story, because you can build your entire piece of content around that story and still include the facts, still include the issues, the scale of the problem, what you're trying to achieve. But what will help me remember it is that story that you told me. And so this one is a video which I will play. It was one we did in conjunction with a production company and Coca-Cola on an initiative called Safe Birth.
Mama, kin ga kisan daji ya fara kyau. Yaushe za ki dawo? Har yanzu da ki mun magana ba. Mama, sai da safe.
And so you can see on that clip a story about a young girl, and you probably remember her name. Now, if I asked you to recall the number of women who die every year in childbirth, you probably won't remember. You just remember that there are lots of women and lots of children. But you remember Aminata's story, and so you remember this initiative, and that itself is central to what we're trying to achieve. If we can get you to remember what we're trying to achieve, if you can get you to remember our initiative, our organization, our NGO, and the people that benefit, then I think we've done a great job. And so that's what that does. Now, this one is a little bit drier in that it's just copy, right? So it's just words on a page. There's no dynamic video. There's no infographic. But again, still very much centered on one person's story. And I'll read it out for people that can't see properly. So the title says, Empowering Sex Workers in Malaysia. Middle-income countries like Malaysia are seeing international funding for HIV start to dry up. Yet the epidemic is increasing among most at-risk groups, such as men who have sex with men, people who inject drugs, and the transgender community and sex workers. At the start of the 1990s, the number of females infected in Malaysia was 1 out of every 99 men. Now it is 1 in 4. Rose, 46, has been a sex worker for 15 years. She's also an outreach worker at PT Foundation in Kuala Lumpur, where she is supported, or which is supported by the International HIV Alliance, and helps sex workers to stay healthy by providing a range of services from free condoms to legal advice. When I was young, I had big dreams, but my biggest mistake in life was falling too hard in love with an irresponsible man. The worst point in the relationship was when he forced me to have sex with his friends. Soon, if I didn't sleep with men, I didn't earn money. I would get hurt. I didn't know my rights as a human being. If I was ever hit by him or any of the other men, I would just keep quiet, says Rose. Being part of the PT Foundation means I am an empowered woman. I was self-conscious before. I would hate when people looked at me. I thought they were judging me. I was sad and lonely. Now I feel empowered, and I can reconnect with society at large. It's also enabled my friends, other sex workers, to open their minds and receive proper education about what their rights are. Today, Rose continues to advocate on behalf of her fellow sex workers. We get a lot of stick from the police. They say that we're encouraging people to sell sex by distributing condoms, but that's not true. I am proud that I am part of the Foundation's mission to help reduce HIV in vulnerable communities. The Alliance has a long history of working with communities in marginalized and vulnerable groups who are at the most risk of HIV. So this is the story of Rose. It really is the story of a foundation who's doing great work in Malaysia to help curb the HIV epidemic that has now considerably, increased since the 1990s. But you will remember this woman called Rose, who herself is now an advocate, who herself is now trying to do her part to reduce the number of people infected by giving out condoms. One of the other things you might remember in this story is that funding that used to be allocated to this specific issue in Malaysia is now drying up. And so if you were reading the story of Rose and you were moved, you might want to look into how you can support. So even though it's really just copy, it's just words on a page, we've told the story of one person, and you're really now starting to see how you can impact a whole community through that one story. Now, this is a considerable deviation from what we've just seen about humanity. But again, this is really coming from us understanding our stakeholders. So this was part of a financial inclusion project that I directed a few years ago. And we were really trying to build capacity and education about financial inclusion across a variety of stakeholders. Now, this was something that was targeted at young people. The reality is they're not interested in understanding financial inclusion. Most people think financial inclusion is really just about bank accounts. And if we try to share data around current inclusion rates, I doubt that they would have been interested. So what we decided to do, and again, because we understood that demographic and we really had looked at them to understand the kind of content they interact with and how they engage, we decided to make it a game. So you get 100 points or 100% if you have one of these specific things, you add the points next to them. So the game was how financially included are you? The first one is, do you have a bank account? You get 30 points. Do you save? You can add 20. Have you ever gotten a loan? Add another 20. Investment, 15. Car insurance or any insurance, 5. And pension, 5. And so what you find is that people want to know how included they are, and they start to realize that they're not as included as they thought they were. And so this now brings up questions as to, well, why aren't we as included? Is it a lack of understanding of availability of products? Is it about really our economic status? But these are very important questions to ask. But what we also did quite sneakily is for every question, we included the fact that we wanted people to learn. And so, do you have a bank account? Did you know that 36.8% of Nigeria's adult population don't have a bank account? Now, this is a few years old, so I'm sure these facts and figures have changed slightly, but you get the message. And it really was for us about just making sure that we were creating the kind of content that would resonate for our audience. So that is, I think, the last slide in my presentation. I will stop there for questions. Like I said, I did want it to be very high level enough so that everyone would benefit, but I hope it wasn't too high level that it wasn't relevant. Thank you all for staying with me and for your time. I see now we have 209 participants. Over to you, Shay.
Yes, thank you so much, Onyebuchi, and it's been an excellent couple of minutes listening to you. I like your comment around dry content and how we need to, as non-profits, improve on that. Thank you for that slide. Let me confirm to participants that we would share the slides. I see a couple of people asking for the slides. So we'll take a quick dive into the Q&A. I'm sure we've heard everything that our great speaker, what she has said today. So if you have any question, please type into the Q&A, and I would need the support of the technical guys at the back end to help me, just in case I'm missing any of these questions. Someone is asking, and this is from Oluwaseun Samuel Ayegboyi. In your statement to answer the question, why am I here? You said to change the world. Please, how do you mean by saying to change the world? Is that why I'm here? I'm really, no, I can't get what this last sentence means, but I'm being achieved just by this meeting. There's a bit of clutter there, but let's focus on what do you mean when you say to change the world? Do you want to take that, Onyebuchi?
I think that's a very existential question. So what is your reason for being? I think everybody comes to this world wanting to leave it a little better than they met it as individuals. And I think NGOs even more so. So you set out to create an organization to solve a specific social issue. If you're able to solve it even slightly, will have a positive impact on a lot of people's lives. And if that's not changing the world, then I don't know what is. It's changing your subset of the world, and that's why I said that. So I hope that answers your question, and I do hope that the training has helped to give you some tools to do it even better.
Okay, Buket is saying the media has a great role to develop communication strategies for NGOs. The media industry has different categories: print media, broadcast media, and the internet, new media. Which category of media type is very important for NGOs?
So that's a great question. And it was one of the things I was trying to allude to before. You almost need to have your own media strategy, and you want to be able to take each of those channels as individual channels. The most important one for your communications plan really depends on your own objectives. So let's use a simple example of you're trying to engage government specifically because you know that to achieve your objectives, you need to target them. You would then need to start to think about what media publications, platforms, and channels do government stakeholders engage. You might want to discount some of them because you know they're just not reading them. So they're not, on Twitter reading your comments potentially. They might be reading specific newspapers. There might be specific broadcast channels that they're looking at. It might be more effective to try and invite them to an event that you're holding. But you really want to start with your stakeholder. If you know who you're trying to target and you understand the channels they interact with, you will immediately start to see what media publications, platforms, and channels are the most appropriate for what you're trying to achieve.
And that channel might also include NTA news that we've all discarded. Hi, thank you for this amazing session. I'd like to know, is there a cheat sheet template to put together either of these story formats? How do you determine the CTA, which should be targeted to stakeholders? I think maybe that CTA will be content, I do not know. Can one story have multiple call to action? And this is Abiye Briggs asking that question.
So I don't have a cheat sheet, no. I mean, if I did, I would definitely share it, and that may very well be another session. But in terms of call to actions, I think you really usually want one, right? I want to be able to leave your content with a directive, and you're the one that's directing me. So it's always more powerful when you have just one call to action that it tells you what to do. In terms of what your call to action should be, again, it depends on who your audience is. So let's use as an example the invisible advert that I showed you that went in the Financial Times. Now, a lot of the people reading the Financial Times are potentially donors of these types of organizations. So a call to action can be, we need more resources to do the great work we're doing, to donate, please do this, because you understand your stakeholders. And you can see that there's a recurring theme about understanding your stakeholders, right? You need to understand the people that you're communicating with, because that will inform a lot of what you're trying to do. It will inform your content, it will inform your channel, and of course, it will inform your call to action.
Okay, all right. So CTA is call to action. Onyebuchi just mentioned to us that we should avoid jargons and also what's it called? So we have CTA as a call to action. I'll quickly read this out because that concerns Sterling One Foundation, and I hope the Executive Director is online to answer this immediately. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of today's session. I can say that I'm not going back to my team members with the way I came to the Zoom meeting. Oh, thanks to our facilitator for the job well done. To Madam Pedro, thanks to you and your team members for the great work you're doing, changing the way we work and access opportunities as a social worker. Ma'am, my question, you made us to understand that as a member of Triple NGO, we have the privilege of benefiting from operating an account with zero charges in any of the Sterling One bank, and that if we used Giving.ng platform for crowdfunding, we have the privilege of benefiting from the 1 million opportunity for Sterling. Now I can hear my voice. I would like to know, how much we can ask for, minimum amount we can raise, and the numbers of donors before we can qualify for the opportunity. Thanks to Triple NGO for always having the welfare of the members at the back of their minds always. And this is from Benjamin Olorunfemi.
Thank you very much, sir. And I will be taking a few minutes to share more about this in once we're done with the questions for Onyebuchi. So I would say, sir, that I would speak to it in detail during my time. So we can hold on question for now. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Olorunfemi, you should await our presentation where this will be covered. Just in case you also have any question, please put it in the Q&A. I would circle back to Onyebuchi now, and someone is asking, as a newbie in the NGO space, what are the first steps to take with your initiative to begin the journey?
So that might not necessarily be a communications question. It's more about your corporate objectives. I think the question that I asked in one of my first slides about what problem are you trying to solve is probably one of the questions you want to ask yourself, right? If you're going to start an NGO, what is your NGO's main purpose? What is your reason for being? What is the issue or the problem that you're trying to solve? How will you solve it? Who do you need to help you solve it? That's probably a good place to start. Once you have that answer, then you probably want to now start thinking about how communications can help you achieve those objectives.
Excellent. And another good way to start is to check the Triple NGO website, triplengo.org. It has some information for you to do your governance, set up your systems, and hit the ground running. Again, someone would like to know, while being sensitive to audience channel alignment, to what extent should you compromise when faced by finance constraints? This is Itia Otabo asking that question.
So just to make sure I understand the question, I'll answer, and if my answer isn't giving you what you need, then please feel free to jump in and ask another question. All NGOs have financial constraints, right? No NGO has an unlimited pool of resources, and you will need to make decisions to go for something as opposed to something else. You will evaluate the opportunity cost of one over the other. So there's no compromising. It's just the way that it is. There is a finite pool of resources, and you have to target it. I think it also helps you to really be more targeted and to be more streamlined. If you only have £100, you have to determine where to spend it. You will start to be creative and start to look for free platforms. Social media is one of the easiest and freest platforms that there are. Now, there are ways to boost your visibility on social media, but even those are not expensive. So you can start with things like that. Social media platforms, going to events where the kinds of people you want to meet are already at, especially if these events are free to enter. So there are a lot of ways, so long as you understand where those people are, you can start to look for the free/cheap ways of engaging them. And then you can now layer on top of that any financial resources you have, because you've already utilized all the free options available.
Excellent. So building on that, and that's why as Nigeria Network of NGOs, we are working with Meta, which will be Facebook, to train civil society organizations on how best to use Facebook to communicate their message and communicate effectively. There's another training coming up in August. We started in July. We're going to run that throughout December. Someone would like to ask, are we going to get the presentation in our email? Adaize, I can confirm, but this is by the powers not given to me that you would get that the presentation in your email. I'll take two more questions, which is that fine, and then we can round up your session. Okay, thank you. Going from general, that is figures and statistics, to creating a persona, which telling someone's stories. Okay, I'll just reframe this. This is not clear to me when I'm reading. But I think what this person is trying to ask is it advisable to tell stories of multiple personas in a content?
If it serves your objective, yes. I've written articles that have 3 different people in that article because each person's story added a unique perspective to the broader message. Now, it's more powerful when there's one story, right? The power of a single story is undisputed, but you can have multiple. So if you're telling a story and you want to talk about the impact on women, on girls, you're talking about one specific girl's plight when it comes to education. You might want to then layer on top of that another lady, another girl who has cultural or religious restrictions around why she can't go to school. So for example, families that don't think that girls should be educated. You might want to tell her story differently because they're two different messages. There's no really hard or fast rule, I think, is the answer. One story will always be the most powerful way to tell a story, but you can always use multiple.
Okay, excellent. So I have this question, but you recall that I promised that I'll take 2 more questions. Permit me to be biased because this other question has my surname in it, and I'm interested in, whoever is bearing about the same surname with me. But I'll ask the one from Bonaventure that says, thanks for the presentation. You refer to having key messages to attract funds. What happens in a situation where NGO deals with a variety of issues, such as protection of fundamental rights, prisoners' rights, women's rights, development of skills, and so on and so forth?
So a lot of the things that you've just listed all fall under rights. So you can probably distill those messages into the importance of human rights in general. But if you are focused on multiple areas, then there may be a case for having key messages for each area. I'll use a private sector example. So you can have an organization that has an insurance arm or that has a banking arm, and you might find that the message around insurance is fundamentally different from the message around banking. There will be shared messages. So you will talk about the fact that, access to financial services can give you better opportunities and safeguard you. When you're talking about insurance, you will talk more about security, right? You're talking about security. If we're talking about banks, you might talk more about other things. So the short answer to your question is that it depends. I think you can probably still get away with having one set of key messages, but if your issues are not overlapping and there's no synergy between them, then there's probably an argument to have a message or 2 each for each of those issues. But you don't want to get to a place where you have so very many messages, you're not keeping track of them, and that in itself becomes a task.
Okay, excellent. I am David Crown Onyebuchi. What kind of concise message would be suitable for an NGO working on quality education which focus on teachers?
That's definitely not a question that one can answer in 1 minute. I think that in itself is an entire strategy. So that will be my answer. There's definitely not going to be a key message workshop in the last minute of our session, but it's a great question. And perhaps one of the subsequent sessions can be about key message development for NGOs.
Okay, thank you so much, Onyebuchi. You've done so well that I feel like giving you a bonus question, and I'll ask that and close with this. And this, trust me, this is the final one. What is your counsel for a nonprofit whose events or programs are mostly virtual on how they can share contents or tell stories that are valuable?
That's a very good question, actually. So virtual events are great because it means that the barrier to entry is limited. People don't have to leave their homes, so you might get more uptake. Now, the downside is engagement. I find that I join virtual events, and I shouldn't be saying this in a virtual event, and sometimes get distracted by my phone, distracted by other things. And so being able to be engaged in that session can be challenging. One of the ways that I tend to do this is to make sure that you're breaking up your session into bits, that you have interactive elements. So you might have a session that's me listening to a speaker, but immediately following it, you want a session that's interactive, that pulls in your audience, whether through a poll, whether through Q&A or a chat. You really don't want to leave them listening to people for too long because you might lose them. You want to also think about the content. So you want to, have different types of content. And so in my presentation, you'll see that I talked a lot, but then I had a video, I had copy. There are other ways that you can keep people engaged, but understanding the limitations and the need to engage virtual audiences considerably more than physical audiences, I think is the first step.
So thank you so much, Onyebuchi Ajufo. We've enjoyed your presentations. They're very useful, and I'm sure colleagues on the call, 204 of them will improve in their communications and marketing. in the good work that they do across communities. Once again, we say thank you, and we'll now move over to the next session. And in this session, we'll be talking about the Sterling Cares product and also other goodies that Sterling One Foundation has in stock for us. I'll hand over to Mrs. Olakweju Bekwe, who is the Executive Director of Sterling One Foundation. And she's the one that will tell us where the money is and how to make the money. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Onyebuchi, and a good afternoon to everyone on the call. That was a fantastic presentation, Onyebuchi. I think I speak on behalf of everyone on this call that not to stand churchy, but we're not living here the same way we came in. We've definitely learned something new that would be very valuable for us on this journey in the social impact space. Now, I lead the Sterling One Foundation, and I'll go straight to Mr. Onyebuchi, Mr. Benjamin's question on Sterling Cares and Giving.ng. Sterling Cares is a free banking solution established in partnership with the Nigerian network of NGOs and Sterling Bank. Thankfully, I have someone who has used the solution here. So I would introduce Mr. Alex Ahigbe, who is the lead of the African Cleanup Initiative. And I would like him to speak to his experience before I go on with my presentation. Mr. Alex Ahigbe, you have the floor for a few minutes to tell us about the Sterling Care solution.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Peju. Thank you so much for having me on board. And I want to thank Triple NGO as well and everyone that's on this call. I just want to share my own personal experience. For me, it's more like what I have testified. As if you have encountered it, you can say it better. Before now, we used to bank, our organization banked with like 3 different banks before as per having NGO accounts, but it's not been funny until we, well, I say stumbled into or got in contact with Sterling One. And from that point till date, we have been on that particular platform. So my name is Alexander Akigbe. I work with the African Cleanup Initiative. We are a non-for-profit. We are into raising environmentally responsible citizens. Most of our work can be found on Instagram. If you Google ACI Nigeria or Clean Up Nigeria on Instagram, you get to know more about us. So we have been using this Sterling Care account for a while now. It's a special account that is run by the Sterling Bank in partnership with Sterling One Foundation and the Triple NGO, which is for non-profit organization. We've enjoyed a seamless service. When I say seamless service, I mean even their online platform is so sweet. I remember when I first joined, I spoke with the account officer. I said, are you sure I'm going to have a seamless service when it comes to using your online platform? She was like, yes, don't use a lie. I said, blah, blah. I said, okay, that's fine. But going forward, I think everything we've done on that platform has been massive, has been wonderful. And you can open this account with no minimum deposit balance at all. I had somebody talking about she's a newbie in the business. You don't need to have $1,000, $5,000 to open this account. Virtually with no minimum deposit balance, you can operate from any part of Nigeria via the Sterling digital platform. This account also gives us free services as we do not need to pay for fees for any transaction. In fact, that was one major challenge I used to have back then. At the end of the month, when I see our statement of account, and I see this for this charge for this charge for that, I was like, wow. In fact, I had to call the previous bank I was using before. I had to call the account officer. I was like, this is much. How will you charge all of this amount? We're an NGO, we're not making money. But then I need to understand they're in for business. They need to make money. So this account can give you virtually free services. You don't need to pay for fees for transaction. Apart from the CBN accounts, at least the monthly maintenance fee, that's not from Sterling Bank, it's from the CBN, which you just have to pay for. And this is for us, it's a huge and big bonus as we need every fund we can to get to enable us to do our work and make positive impact. And this account gives us that flexibility that we're talking about. We don't have so much money. And so the little we have, we want to make good use of it. As we're Sterling One Foundation just gave us access to this account that Sterling Bank is running. And I can say so far that we have been on this platform, I don't have any regrets. This is my personal testimony. I don't have any regrets. And I want to advise or extend the same hand of fellowship to other NGO users or founders like myself to come on board, and let's see how we can make impact and also reduce our costs and also spread the good work all around. And still, yes, we'll make money. We'll make money. I will keep the money as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Sterling One Foundation. You've given to my organization. And there's one bonus that is attached to this. I don't think I should mention. Maybe you mention that one. This way, if I mention that bonus, everybody will just jump on this account. I'm telling you, there's a huge amount of money that comes to a particular set of people that comes on board within the specific space of the specific time or thereabout. But you will talk about that one. I'm telling you, you have nothing to lose if you are on this platform. Take that from me. You can just take that from me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well done, Peju. You're doing well. Kudos.
Thank you so much, Alex. And that was fantastic. So basically, I just thought that because we've been having this capacity building session for a while, and we've been speaking about the solution for a while. So I thought that this time around, I think we should speak to someone who has experienced the solution. And I think he has said it all. I'm just going to run through what we have here. So he spoke to the Sterling Cares solution. Sterling Cares solution is free banking, is Africa's first free banking solution for not-for-profit organizations. It's unique, it's different, and it was birthed because we realized that not-for-profit organizations have huge costs. There's so much you want to do with so little funds. The least we can do for you is provide you a service that you don't have to pay charges. And this was, Sterling Bank was magnanimous alone enough to provide this solution. And this is in partnership with the Nigerian network of NGOs and us, Sterling One Foundation. You can get more information on it, sterling.ng/cares, sterling.ng/cares. And you get email alerts, no minimum balance, no initial deposit, and every transaction is free, no transaction fees at all. You can easily get the normal, it's actually normal account opening. And these are all regulatory account opening requirements just for the bank and the CBN to recognize you as a registered not-for-profit organization in Nigeria. And the list of the documents required are here. These slides will be shared with you via mail, so you can always go back to it, because like Onyebuchi mentioned, we cannot just assimilate everything at once. So you can go back to it to check it all, to ensure that you have the relevant documents authorized by your board of trustees. And with that, you can have the Sterling Cares account. These accounts can be opened anywhere in Nigeria. I am aware that we have some of our participants joining us from other parts of Africa. There's someone joining from the US, people are joining from Ethiopia, Namibia. I'm aware, but this solution currently is for NGOs in Nigeria. And we also have a 100K benefit for some of the, and this is just to say well done. 100K is just a stipend, if you would ask me. But it's just to say well done, you are doing. And we have some terms and conditions attached to it. We want to be sure that you are doing the work you state you're doing. Registered NGO, you have your audited accounts, and the terms and conditions are also on the screen. You must have been in existence for a number of years. You must have executed projects. This is, like I said, the 100K is just a well done for the great work you are doing. And then now that was for Sterling Cares. And thank you so much, Alex, for such very, very, very great words. I'm actually humbled, and I must commend those that are serving you also, because like Onyebuchi mentioned, it's about collaboration. I must commend the staff at Sterling Bank that served you and are serving you. Now, this is Giving.ng. Giving.ng is Africa's first and only free crowdfunding platform, and it's for social impact projects. The services are free, and I must mention here, because this has been identified by some of our beneficiaries, the only charges that are taken on this solution is the charges by our payment gateway. And that includes Flutterwave and Paystack. That's because we've ensured that donations can be made to your social impact project from anywhere in the world. Once they want to make a donation and they go on giving.ng, your product or your solution and the impact project you want to do is on giving.ng, you want to raise funds for it, donations can be made from anywhere. Donations can be made via transfer, via card, via USSD. And so it's basically no barriers. There are no excuses. People that want to give to the great work you're doing can easily do that on giving.ng. Also, we serve you, not-for-profit organizations. We serve alumni associations. And the interesting part is you can get up to ₦1 million in grants when you have your project on giving.ng. How can this be done? All you have to do is to ensure that you get your community to support that project. If you are a registered member of the Nigerian network of NGOs, all you have to get is 50 people to support your project, and if not, up to 100 people to support that project. The truth is that the only way you can succeed when you're crowdfunding is for you to have a crowd. And we just want to be sure that you have a crowd. And what we provide are finishing grants. So if you have just ₦1 million left for your project target to be achieved, and you've met either the 50 people or the 100 people as part of your community or a crowd to support that project, then we are ready to support projects that are in line with the health, education, renewable energy sectors or thematic areas. So we will be glad to support you. The URL for giving is www.giving.ng. And like I mentioned, alumni associations can benefit. Individuals can also benefit, because you find some people, they have a heart for social impact, but they've not gone through the process of registering their NGO properly with the CSA. And there's a need in their community that they want to meet. You can register as an individual, put your cost up, get your community to support. We will just ensure that the funds go to the project directly. We will not be crediting your personal account. We'll go to the project directly. And we provide support also with communication. We can do creatives around your project and put up on our social media handles, send to our database of supporters to also support your project. And now those are the fantastic things 31 Foundation has for you. And of course, everything we're doing is with partners. The Nigerian Network of NGOs has been a fantastic partner on this, and we will continue working with them to ensure that we support the ecosystem, development ecosystem in Nigeria and Africa as much as we can. Now, this slide here shows you how to qualify for the completion grant, and I've already spoken to that. So the process is simple. You just get on the platform, your profile approval, you start your campaign, your course is approved, you share with your community. And for approval for an NGO to register on giving.ng, 3 basic requirements are your valid means of identification for the sponsors, the directors, trustees of that NGO, your CAC document, which is your registration document with the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria, and finally, your memorandum and articles of association, so we can get to know you more, because we are very interested in knowing our partners, knowing those we are working with. The focus of, well, I believe I'm going to take more questions after. We have various partners, we have various beneficiaries of the grants, from Clever Minds Foundation that built a free school in Delta State, to Nikki Laoye. Last year, she provided 100 Kings for the Blind. She was a beneficiary of our grant. To Aproko Doctor, yes, Aproko Doctor was also a beneficiary of our grant. He's continually raising funds to support those that cannot pay their medical bills, and we also gave him our grant. We have quite a number of grant beneficiaries. So at this point, I think I can call it a day. This contact@giving.ng. The URL, as I mentioned, is www.giving.ng, and is a crowdfunding platform. The one I spoke to earlier, that Sterling Cares that Alex testified about, is a banking product in partnership with the Nigerian network of NGOs and Sterling Bank. I think I'm going to go straight to responding to questions now. Mr. Benjamin, you can let me know if I have fully responded to your questions. So the first question I'm saying here is what is the difference? You have an account with Sterling Bank. So Sterling Bank serves everyone as a financial institution in Nigeria. But this solution was carefully curated for not-for-profit organizations to ensure that they get free banking solution from Sterling Bank. You mentioned what other benefits are there to NGOs. I think I've spoken to that already. Free banking, and then you can also benefit from giving.ng that provides up to ₦1 million in grants, and that's a response to LG. Now I'm going to a question from Grace Omoragbon, and that question is, where can I get more information on this Sterling account opening? We will be sharing a link after this meeting, or we're going to be sharing a link to every participant. That link would we would request your details if you are interested, and we'll get someone to reach out to you. But you can go to sterling.ng/cares. I repeat, sterling.ng/cares. That will give you more information on the product. But we'll get someone to contact you. Why? Because account opening is usually a process, getting all the documents, getting everybody to sign, and getting all the relevant requirements, mandate card. So that's usually a process. We'll get someone to help you with that. Must I have an account with Sterling Bank? Currently, you don't have to have an account with Sterling Bank before you get the free banking account. You can just easily open a free banking account with Sterling Bank and benefit from the free NGO account. Please kindly take the answer again with, please, my network was bad. Okay. Itwa, I'm not sure what your question was initially. So maybe I would try to say that you can get more information on the Sterling Cares account at sterling.ng/cares. It's free banking for NGOs first in Africa. We hope that other people would support your sector more. Can we have a contact number of Giving.ng, as the number has been offered? Is really. So the product manager for Giving.ng is on this call now. So Ruth, from the Sterling One Foundation team, can you liaise please with Madam Ozigbo and let her put in a contact number in the chat right away so that she can be contacted. Thank you very much, Nathaniel, for giving us this information. The technical team, please liaise with the product manager for Giving.ng and let them quickly put that number there. I am David Crown of ABC. Does it mean that one can't do a fundraising without opening up? You can, so please, Giving.ng is completely different for Sterling Cares. So you can use Giving.ng without having a Sterling Bank account, please. And you can use your Sterling Cares account without crowdfunding on Giving.ng. Giving.ng is when you want to crowdfund only. And Giving.ng is open to everybody. I mentioned earlier, individuals, alumni associations, anywhere in Nigeria for now. We will work with our regulators to see how we can extend outside Nigeria. So, but currently it's just within Nigeria. So the Sterling Cares account is completely different from Giving.ng. They are completely different places. Can we migrate to Sterling One from normal Sterling Bank, please? Yes, you just need to liaise with your account officer and tell them that you want to move from your normal current account that of course charges COT to the Sterling Cares account. I think we're going to put in a number that you can contact if you have any issues on this. Support ecology. Where in Africa do you partner, or are NGOs eligible for your support? This support is for NGOs and it is in Nigeria for now. Soon we will go outside Nigeria, and once that we're able to do that, we will communicate via email to all those on this call, especially those that are outside Nigeria. What is the I think I've spoken to that. Yes, I meant, secondly, do you mean one will be credited with 100,000 naira? Yes, once you meet the terms and conditions, you will be credited with 100,000 naira. Is Kenya included on giving.ng? Not at this point, but hopefully very soon. How can I become a member of the NGOs network? I think you can go to the website. Mr. Oyebisi would respond to that. But there's a website for the Nigerian network of NGOs. And you can get more information on that. But Mr. Oyebisi will speak to that more once I hand over to him. My NGO is less than a year old. Can I register? Definitely, you can register. You may not be able to get the 100,000 naira yet, but you can register and you can access the 1 million naira grant subject to the requirements on giving.ng, even if your NGO has not even started. You can benefit from what giving.ng offers once you have a heart for social impact and you want to do that. Please, how much will 50 people donate that will qualify NGO to access 1 million naira? Fantastic question. So this is what I'll put things in perspective quickly. On giving.ng, if you have an emergency, an example of an emergency is there's a woman in the hospital, she's about to give birth, and they just discover that it is a CS and she needs 200,000 naira. Else she and baby might die. That's an emergency. You put it up on giving.ng, we're going to pay for 200,000 naira immediately. That's an emergency, life and death situation that is less than 1 million naira. Giving.ng will take it up and support completely without any support from anyone, because we believe life is priceless. 1. 2, if it is not an emergency, you want to build a school in a community and you need 1 million naira or a 1.5 million naira, let's say 1.5 million naira. The 50 people or your community basically should have raised up to 500,000 naira. The maximum amount that giving.ng is currently providing is 1 million naira. So you would have raised up to a point where what is left is 1 million naira or less than 1 million naira. Then we would support. Because we call the grants finishing grants. Basically, we help you finish fast. We help you meet your targets quickly. I believe I've responded to that question. So your community is just a minimum of 50 people or 100 people. So people have a huge community, they can get up to 1,000 people. The point is we provide finishing grants once you have been able to reach a certain amount that we can now complete for you. It's a completion grant. So even if you want to raise 50 million naira and you have been able to get your community to support you with 49 million naira or 49.1 million naira, then we will take it up and finish up for you. That's to that question. And then kindly assist me with registration portal for the NGO network. So at this point, I think I have taken I've responded to all the questions shared with me. And I think I can hand over to Mr. Oyebisi. Thank you so much.
Before you go, Madam Peju.
Yes, sir.
Yes, before you go, someone is saying that I don't think your staff at Sterling Bank in Makurdi are aware of this Sterling Care account. I contacted them, but they seem not to be aware of the account package.
Thank you very much. So the technical team, someone on the back end will get your contact immediately and follow through with you on this. Who is this someone, sir? I didn't get. Okay, this is Kelvin.
The person's name is Cor something. He or she sent it on the chat box.
On the chat, yes, I can see
Call
it
David.
now.
Call David, yes. Call David.
So, and this is Makurdi. At Ruth, no, not at Ruth. At Olabisi, could you please help get this contact? We're going to reach out to you. Or Kelvin, if you don't mind, you can put your number in your chat. I can see you have your email there, but I'd rather we call you immediately after this and we follow through with you on this.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. Now we know.
Sorry, I can see Angela's hand up. I'm not sure.
Okay, Angela, can we quickly take you for 30 seconds? Can we quickly take you for 30 seconds? You can, is she able to unmute?
I'm not sure if she can speak, but I think she can chat.
Hello.
Yes. Okay, yeah, Angela, please go ahead quickly. 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Well, maybe it must have even been an error. I didn't even know that I raised my hand. But anyway, I had actually sent a question on the chat. So I think she has answered that because I was asking what are the criteria
okay, so
that benefit from the...
I've answered that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
so
brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Hear your voice there.
I think I can hand over to you now. Thank you for, I can see 3 other hands up. Okay, Cor David, I think we've responded to them all. Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
yes, thank you so much. So we should be rounding off now, and I would give each of the speakers 1 minute to round off. Do I still have Onyebuchi on the call to just give us our parting shots in just 1 minute so that we can seal the wisdom we've all gained from her? Then I'll allow Madam Ibekwe to also give us a 1 minute closing, then I'll round off. Do I still have Onyebuchi on the call?
I don't think Onyebuchi is still on the call.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then I'll let you do your 1 minute, and then we can round off the session.
Okay. So I would like to appreciate everyone that joined us from far and near for this timely session. I with the feedback we've seen in the chat already, I'm sure it's been an interesting session. I would like to request that you can follow us on our social media handles at Giving NG on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also follow us at Sterling One Foundation on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. This will ensure you get regular information on what it is we're doing and the unique things we're coming up with to support the development ecosystem in Nigeria and Africa. You can also still ask questions if you have any on DM, slide into our DM or send us messages on any of these platforms. Finally, a mail will be sent to you with the link for us to get your more feedback on this and to also identify some people are interested in the solutions, but maybe they were not able to join this call because of network issues. Please, I request that you kindly fill the forms that will be shared with you to get your feedback and to also get your details so we can follow through, especially if there's anyone like our colleague at Marcodi. Thank you so much. Do have a fantastic rest of the week. And I didn't appreciate Mr. Oyebisi also for being our partner since last year. Thank you for all you are doing. He's been around the country, and it's a good thing. I think the last session we had was earlier in the year, but we're looking to have some more before the end of this year. So please, thank you so much. We are very grateful. Do have a fantastic rest of the day.
And thank you so much. Our greatest thanks to Onyebuchi Ajufo for sharing from our wisdom. Thanks to Sterling One Foundation for the opportunity to be able to work with them in building the capacity of our sector. And today we've spoken about communications and marketing strategy for nonprofits.
Sorry, we have Ambassador Idris Musa who says his question was not answered.
Okay, all right. What's the question, Ambassador? I'm sure we can't pick all of the questions, but since Sterling One Foundation's Executive Director has overridden me, I will yield to her.
Sorry, sir.
Ambassador, please, what's your question? Is he still on the call?
So maybe we take it up. He has not responded. So I think we can take it up later.
Okay.
I think
So
what
someone from the team would reach out to you.
I would request for us to also take maybe a picture before
Okay.
call it today.
All right. If it's convenient for you, then please can we have you put on your videos only if it is convenient for you, no pressures. Please put on your video so that we can take a screenshot of today's very fantastic discussion, and also so that we can use that to tell the story based on what we have learned. If we have the pictures on now, yeah, the Zoom doesn't allow video, so can you please allow all participants to be able to put on their videos? Someone is saying the Zoom doesn't allow video. Please activate for me to put on my video. So the technical team, can you please help us so that we can have our videos on, especially the participants? And also I can confirm that we would you would have an email from Sterling Run Foundation along with the presentations from our very respected and experts, Onyebuchi Ajufo, who has spoken to us on what we should do to communicate our work effectively. Do we have all the videos on now? If we do, let's do the screenshot and we can call it a day. Let me thank the over 200 participants that joined these conversations today. And let me also remind you that because we understand that nonprofits need to communicate their work effectively, we are running monthly trainings with Meta. Meta will do the trainings directly for our members on how to effectively communicate using Facebook. We started in July. The next session will be in August. And please look out for that. Do we have all the videos on?
So I understand the videos isn't enabled. I think we can close out now, sir.
Okay. All right. So that's fine. Hopefully you can all join us on August 21st for August 31st for our training with Facebook on how to communicate using the social media platform. Onyebuchi mentioned that a lot today. So once again, let me thank Sterling Run Foundation. It's been very awesome, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to moderate this. Enjoy the rest of the day, and may God bless all of us.
Bye, sir. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.